In the age when the world still held unexplored frontiers, few names stirred the imagination like Ernest Shackleton. Born in 1874 in Ireland, Shackleton was the second of 10 children. Restless by nature, he was drawn to the sea, joining the merchant navy at just 16 years old. But it wasn't enough to sail familiar waters. For Shackleton, life only had meaning at the edges of the map, where the ice thickens, the winds scream, and the land itself defies human endurance. The goal that consumed him was as ambitious as it was deadly: to cross the entire continent of Antarctica on foot from sea to sea, through the heart of the coldest, harshest place on Earth. It would be a journey unlike any ever attempted, a journey into the unknown, a journey that would test the very limits of the human spirit.
In 1914, as Europe plunged into World War I, Shackleton set sail aboard his ship, the aptly named Endurance. His crew of 27 men, hand-picked for resilience and toughness, shared his dream. They knew the dangers, they knew the odds, and yet they sailed south into the grip of the Antarctic winter, into a white desert, where one wrong choice meant death. By January 1915, disaster struck. The Endurance became trapped in a frozen sea, locked tight by shifting ice that crushed wooden ships like matchsticks. The men waited for the thaw, they waited for salvation. But Antarctica does not forgive patience. Over months, the ice tightened its grip until finally, with a sound like a gunshot, the Endurance was destroyed, splintered and swallowed by the ice. Shackleton and his men were alone. No ship, no radio, no hope of rescue, only endless ice and a leader who refused to give up.
Faced with annihilation, Shackleton made a decision. They would not wait to die. They would save themselves, dragging lifeboats across the ice, suffering frostbite, exhaustion, and despair. The crew marched toward open water. Temperatures plunged below 40 degrees Celsius. Food ran low. Their dogs, once beloved companions, had to be sacrificed for survival. Still, Shackleton kept the men moving. He kept spirits alive through sheer force of will. After months of brutal struggle, they reached the edge of the ice and launched their lifeboats into the frigid, storm-tossed sea. Aiming for the desolate rock of Elephant Island, they had escaped the ice, but they were far from safe.
Elephant Island was uninhabited. No ship would pass by. The men were stranded once again, battered by freezing gales. Realizing salvation would not come to them, Shackleton chose 5 men and set off on a desperate mission, an 800-mile voyage across the most dangerous seas in the world in a tiny open boat to reach a whaling station on South Georgia Island. The journey was a nightmare. Titanic waves crashed over them, icy winds threatened to flip the boat. The boat leaked constantly, starvation loomed. For 2 weeks, they battled the sea and the storm, navigating by sextant under cloud-choked skies. It was an act of seafaring genius and sheer stubborn refusal to surrender.
When they finally reached South Georgia Island, Shackleton faced one last impossible task. They had landed on the wrong side. Between them and help lay mountainous terrain never before crossed by man. Exhausted beyond imagination, Shackleton and 2 men set off across the mountains with no maps, no proper gear, and no second chances. They climbed ice cliffs by moonlight. They slid down glaciers blind. They marched without rest for 36 straight hours, and at last, on May 20, 1916, they staggered into the whaling station at Stromness. Against every conceivable odd, Shackleton had found rescue.
But Shackleton's mission was not over. He had promised his men he would return, and he did. After 4 attempts, battling ice and storms, he rescued every single one of the 22 men still stranded on Elephant Island. Not one life was lost. In a world now torn apart by World War, the story of Shackleton's expedition stood as a beacon, a testament to endurance, loyalty, and unbreakable leadership. Shackleton would later return to Antarctica, one last time in 1921, but fate would intervene. On January 5, 1922, he died of a heart attack aboard his ship, fittingly, while preparing for another journey into the unknown. He was buried on South Georgia Island, the wild, remote land that had witnessed his greatest triumph.
Today, Ernest Shackleton is remembered not for reaching the South Pole, but for something far greater. He showed that true greatness lies not in conquest, but in compassion, courage, and a promise kept against all odds. His story remains one of the most extraordinary survival tales in human history, and a reminder that when hope seems lost, true leadership can light the way through even the darkest nights. Difficulties are just things to overcome, after all, Shackleton once said, and he proved it every frozen, brutal, magnificent step of the way.